Welcome friend to this session of iterator pattern. In this session we will try to understand the fundamental of iterator pattern, and we will also go through a sample code to understand how iterator pattern can be used practically in projects. So first let's go through the fundamentals. They fall into the behavioral category of design patterns. They allow us to access the elements in sequence without exposing the inside code. If ever you have used the for each statement, I think Java also has a for each and a .NET also has a for each statement. The for each statement allows us to sequentially access uh, a collection element. So for example, in .NET people write, if you have normally written for each rows in dataset.rows, that means that you are already using iterator pattern. So iterator pattern allows us to access the element without exposing the internal element collection. Now what I've done is that, here's a simple example of iterator pattern. This is a private array list which has collection of customer objects. Now what I want is basically, I don't want this array list to be exposed outside, but I also want that the outside client can browse through the array list. So what you do is that you put a class CLS iterator, which basically wraps up this obj array list, and it exposes them by methods like previous, next, get first, and get last. So what happens is basically the iterator pattern works like a wrapper on the top of the obj array list. So it protects the obj array list from any kind of tamper from the external client, but it also allows controlled access to the external client by using previous, next, get first, and get last. So if you look at the client code, it becomes pretty simple. You will see that you have to just say the client always interacts with the iterator. So he says obj iterator dot next, obj iterator dot get last, dot get first. So iterator class stands as a wall in between the internal array list collection and the UI. So it protects, it encapsulates the internal working of that array list from the client. What we'll do is that we will just make a simple code walkthrough. It's the same code of the customer collection which we have discussed now. So here's the iterator class, and here's the customer class which will be in the collection, and here is the array list which is actually protected by the class iterator. And then we have various methods like you can get by index, you can get by using previous, by next, get first, and here is our client. So if you see the previous button, click event, you will see that we are just saying obj iterator dot previous next. Obj iterator is nothing but the object of CLS iterator. Now if you run this program, you can access it by index, you can go previous, you can go next, you can go last, you can go first. So in sense, your client now can browse through the collection or browse through the array list, but in a controlled fashion. So the question you should ask yourself is, when to use iterator pattern is, do you want to allow sequential access of a element, and also you want to protect that element collection, then you need to use iterator pattern. Iterator pattern is the most commonly used pattern in projects, because whenever you use for each loop, that means that you have already used iterator pattern unknowingly. Second, uh, iterator pattern helps us, to protect a collection item to be exposed in a controlled manner. So, for example, you have some kind of collection, like a data set collection or a record set collection. You don't want that record set collection to be exposed completely to the client, because the record set has methods like update batch or insert or something which you don't want to do. But yes, you want to allow them to browse. So if you only want to allow them to browse the internal collection, the internal element collection, but and not expose the actual collection to the client, that's where iterator pattern will come to use. And I'm sure that in many projects, in all the projects almost, the client always needs to browse the business objects, and iterator pattern is a way to expose these business objects to the client, because the DAL component elements like data set, record set, directly exposing to the client is very bad, because once the client gets a control of the record set or the what you call the database objects, then definitely it can create blunder by calling inserts and updates. So the iterator pattern stands in between the DAL component and the Windows UI, and thus maintaining thus decoupling the database elements from the UI, and forming the complete three-tier architecture for a project. I hope this tutorial was useful to you. You can mail me your doubts, and you can mail me your suggestions and improvements for these videos as shiv_koiral@yahoo.com.